Hello folks, it's Monday and it's another episode of What Are You Doing? It's not the show about what I'm making or doing in my shop, but what you are doing in your shop. Now, we've had a lot of entries this week. In fact, I think this is the largest we've ever had. So that means two things. One, that means I need to quit jibber-jabbering and just get down to business. And two, if you're new, that means I'm probably going to screw up your name. So just forewarned to you, it's coming. All right, so let's get into it. Our first person is Brad Soulchin. Brad's been on the show a few times. And Brad made these lamps. He said his wife was doing like a craft show. And so he made these lamps out of spalted maple. And some of them are finished with either Danish oil or boiled linseed oil. And I was telling Brad that in the new house that we got, the front half of the house is older, it's 1951, and then the back half of the house, an addition was put on in 2013. So in the front half of the house, there's no overhead lights. There's a switch, and you have to have floor lamps to operate the lights in there. And my wife just wants to go out and buy some lamps at the store, and I'm like, no, I gotta make my lamps. But I think the darkness is gonna win out in this case, and she's probably gonna buy some sooner than I can make them. But at any rate, I just thought it was really cool, the lamps that Brad had there. Charlie Hinton. Charlie sent in some photos to me of these different wooden boxes that he makes, and he sent in a lot of photos. I'm just showing you a couple of pictures here, but he makes them for everything. Whether I think his wife said she has sewing and knitting supplies, made a box for that. He made a box, I think, for his mother-in-law. He made a box to store his saw blades in. Each one had a different wood, different shape to it. But what I thought was really cool was the wooden hinges that he put on this. I've seen it before, but I really liked seeing it. I was surprised to see it, because I typically expected just to see a standard hinge. And so it kind of made me want to try making one in the shop, but who am I kidding? I don't have time for that. At any rate, Charlie, they look great. Thank you. Ah, the duck. Yeah, the duck. He sent in a photo. It was his brother and sister-in-law were getting married, and he decided to make a photo album for them. And so he has on this Brazilian mahogany, Purple Heart, some leather, and then the brass hinges. And the brass hinges he made. I thought that was kind of neat. I mean, you could just go out and buy hinges, but he specifically made them, shaped them. He said he even aged them a little bit, and yeah, it looks really nice. And that's what a wonderful gift to give. I mean, first of all, someone's getting married, great moment in their life. They'll have that book to look at forever, and it's just nice that he again made something with his own hands, so near and dear to him, and he's able to give it to them. I'm sure they'll always be very appreciative of it. And congratulations, you two, on getting married. Pass the word on for me, the duck. Oh, a little tip too on hinges. I wanted to say this. What I've done was now the duck made his own hinges, but what I've done to kind of age hinges up is I'll beat on them with like a ball peen hammer, and then heat them up red hot with a torch, and then quench it into used motor oil, and that will turn them like a real dark blackish, almost purple looking color. They look really cool when it's done. So anyhow, just a tip. Roy Beckner. Roy said that this is his first project, and he made it out of 2x4s and pocket screws. Now, he said he's new to woodworking, so he doesn't have a whole lot of knowledge or technique in doing the joinery yet. But he said this show gave him the courage to send his work in. And actually, it's a nice-looking little bench. Now, I will say that in time, as we get better in woodworking, we'll be able to look at dimensions and sizes, and you develop an eye for things. But overall, I thought it's a decent little bench, and I mean, with it stained up there, that would look good in the house. Or if you just left it the 2x4s, the natural 2x4s, it'd be great for in the shop. So anyhow, nice job, Roy. Hope you continue, and hope you keep tuning into this show right here. Adam Sheppard. Adam is also new, and he said he too is a beginner or learning woodworking, and he made this sign for his friend's father, and he routed it out, and I was curious on it. I didn't get a reply from him. I didn't know if he used stencils or if he just completely free-handed routing the letters out. If so, pretty steady hand there, especially for a beginner, because usually at the beginner we're nervous with the power tools. We tend to get a little tense with them, and especially when you're routing, if you're going with the grain, it's fine, but then when you start to go against the grain, it might jump or skip on you. But at any rate, the sign looks really great. And what was neat was he said he painted the whole thing to get the letters black, right? And then he was planning on sanding it all off. And as he was, I don't know if he was scraping or sanding, but he kind of liked how the paint went into the deep parts of the grain. And instead of getting it all off, he left a little bit of it on there. And that's the beauty of creating and making something. Sometimes just by accident, you find a new look or a new source of inspiration through the process. And in the case of Adam, he found he liked the look of a little bit extra paint down in there. So, excellent. Terry Kreiling. Terry made this butler pantry. And what's nice about it is not only do the doors open, but then you can pull out to extend the shelves, which is nice. Now, he did say that, I think he said he had to put a couple of extra little legs up front because it was on wheels. He wanted this, I think, to be mobile of some sort. And he said if you have everything extended out, it wants to tip forward. But again, with a little redesigning of it, he's able to put a couple of legs in. And I didn't even notice till he said it. I had to look pretty close because it looks nice. It looks pleasing to the eye. But just a great little feature. I did something similar like that for a customer, all those pull-out shelves, but theirs was permanently built into the walls. I didn't have to worry about that tipping out. I probably didn't even think of it, to be honest with you. See? I'm learning too on this show. David Bishop. David has been each week sending in a photo. He's making this monster truck, wooden toy. And David did say that the truck is already done. I mean, let's face it, he's not going to do one step and then wait a whole week. But I like the fact, and I was telling him, I get built up in anticipation of seeing the next step. And I said, I want to see it completely done, but, don't rush it for me. Keep sending me one photo a week. And I think it's good for all the viewers to see the progress of this. That's what woodworking about. It's not always rushing through it, getting it done. It's about seeing the progress, and it does something inside your soul. It stirs you up to make you want to either get out in the shop and start something, or maybe to pick up a project you've set aside for a while and finish it through. And that's what I get from you guys, and I was getting the same comments and emails to you, that you're all inspired by what everyone's doing on here. So thank you, David, and as much as I beg and plead, don't show me the final picture yet. Okay, another new person, and this is great. Last week we had a new folk from Germany, and this week we have someone from Kenya. Again, it blows my mind thinking how far this show reaches. So I'd like to welcome Ronald Wesonga. Yeah, that's wrong, but anyways, Ronald, he said he made these 3 little stools out of pallet wood. He doesn't really have a shop, so when it's nice outside, that's where he brings his tools out and he works. And again, he's developing his woodworking skills. But he took this pallet wood and he made these little stools. He said he wasn't even sure what the wood was. It looks like pine to me, but maybe there's different local species of trees out there that are similar to pine. But anyhow, once again, we've said it always on the show, it's great when you can repurpose something or recycle it. And, you know, pallets, I don't typically like pallet wood because it's usually the lowest, cheapest grade wood for making pallets. And then you got the nails or screws or whatever else is the dirt and grime typically. I don't like messing with pallet wood, but I do respect the folks that have the patience and do. So, nice job on that, Ronald, and thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for sending your photos in. I say it every week on the show. It doesn't matter what your level is, how experienced or inexperienced you are. This is no judging going on here, just encouragement and good things to say. Daryl Metheny. Daryl is working on a sanding station for his shop, and it's not done. So the photos that I have here, he said that he had a design flaw and he's reworking it. And what I wanted to say on that, what I appreciated on that is it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay if we missed something, we thought we had all the bases covered, we didn't. But when we have these design flaws or something just doesn't look right, that's the best thing for you. Because now you're engaging this. And you're working through it. And yeah, there's things you can, there's tips and tricks and problems you can get on YouTube and Google it. But what's unique on this situation is each woodworker has to work through their own individual problem. And it's giving you more experience, it's giving you more knowledge, and the next time you come to a similar situation, you have something to reflect back on. So I think it's great, Daryl, that you're not giving up with it, you're going to redesign it, and you're going to come back and it's going to be new and improved and better, and we'll see your improvements right here on the show. So that is page 1. Tom Bertino. Now, Tom watched one of the other episodes I did, and I was mentioning how I'm disappointed that schools today don't really encourage or even have woodworking classes. And I volunteered to be a judge for the 4-H club. And I was impressed with the little woodworking program they put together for the youth there. And so Tom was saying that he regularly volunteers at the Omaha Central High School, and he teaches the kids woodworking there, and what they do is they build the sets for the theater plays. And he said these kids, when they start off, they don't know how to operate a power tool, let alone even know what a hammer is, right? By the end of the school year, they're able to teach other kids how to do the woodworking. And he said he really has very little in the building of the sets or the painting of the sets. He totally supervises it. So what a great thing Tom is doing. I mean, I'm glad he's volunteering to do that, but it's a shame that, Tom, you don't get paid in some way. I mean, I'm sure you're paid with happiness and joy, without a doubt. But it's just a shame that the schools don't recognize the value of what you're doing and couldn't somehow, even as a part-time instructor, put you on the payroll. But at any rate, thank you, Tom, and I'm sure the kids in that school will never forget what you're doing. We have another Tom, and I did not plan this, by the way. These are all emails right in a row. Tom Tittlemier. Tom made wooden mug. Last week we had a fella, sorry I can't remember the name, but he made a wooden coffee mug, and I had mentioned that I always wanted to make a wooden beer mug, and well, Tom's made them here. He's got some wooden beer mugs, and I was curious on it. I didn't get a reply from Tom, but I was curious. The one mug is tapered, so I just wondered what his degree there of tapering was, and to fit the bottom in, that must have been interesting too. I see he's got it like a small little dado groove going across there that the bottom would fit in. I imagine some waterproof glue in there to help keep from seeping, but kind of reminds me like the old Coopers that would make the barrels. And I found this interesting. There were two different types of Cooper barrels. They didn't all hold liquids. Some were made, obviously, to hold liquids, and so they had to be waterproof. But others were made just for dry goods, too, grains and such. So those weren't as precise as the ones that had to hold liquid. So anyways, what Tom was doing there is kind of like a form of coopering. And to our third Tom, this Tom is new, Tom McClellan. I hope that's right. Tom McClellan. He's been doing woodworking for 40 years, and it's his goal to have like every piece in his house made by him. Same thing that I am going for. And he made a new media center. He said he had one of those big entertainment centers that housed the TV. Well, now everything's like these consoles, right? The TV sits on top. So he made this media center, and it's of like a shaker style, and it's mostly cherry. Come on, get out of here. And it looked like the raised panels might have been walnut, which I love that combination together. I love two-tone, especially the natural two-tone. But what I really liked about this, and I wanted to kind of point out to people, is the attention to detail. Now, I'm not talking detail where he's got inlay or fancy carving or anything like that. But look at the legs. There's just a slight taper on the legs. And then that arch on that bottom rail, just a ever so slight, sweeping, graceful arch. It's little things like that that help refine your woodworking. It's not always about technique. It's also about looks. And remember the three rules to woodworking. 1, it has to serve a purpose. 2, it has to be constructed well. 3, it has to look good. Franklin Gottschall's rules. And then I like to throw in there that rule 3, looking good, should never come before rule 1 or 2, a purpose or construction. So, great job on that, Tom. Would love to see some more of your work. Becky Stock, she was new last week. She sent in some photos of a Morris chair that she's making for her husband. And here we get to see a little bit more progress on it. Again, I love seeing the progress. But she had said that she too is fairly new to woodworking, and the plans for the Morris chair involved Morris and 10 joints, and she didn't feel she could master that skill yet, so she chose to do screws and then covered the screw heads with a dowel plug. And that's okay. That's okay. In fact, I like the look of the little end grain of the dowel plugs. It's just another little accent feature to the piece. But what I liked about Becky's enthusiasm was she was asking me questions about how to do Morrison tenon and the best way to do it. And so I've been saying it for a while, and so I'll just announce it here now. I will be doing a series on it. Now, I have to write it. It's going to take me some time to take all my notes and write them out, so I go in a nice orderly fashion with it. But I will cover doing them by hand. I will cover them doing them by machines and the different methods to do them. So hang in there, Becky. Until then, keep doing what you're comfortable with. Practice maybe a joint or two, not on your project, but just on some scrap piece of wood. If every time we come out to the shop, if we just spend 15 minutes doing some kind of warm-up, some kind of practice, whether it's cutting to a line with a handsaw, whether it's trying to make a Morrison tenon, whether it's just drilling a hole, anything, practice something on that you're a little bit weak, and then before long, when the job requires you to do that, you're going to have the skill and the ability. Okay, let's see. Going over to Ireland, my friend Mark Fitzsimons. Mark is a regular on the show. Mark is a fantastic woodworker, craftsman, extraordinaire. So even if you're a beginner, don't be intimidated by the people who are better than you. We learn from the people better from us. And so Mark this week is a fairly simple project for his level. He made some picnic tables. He said his old boss wanted some picnic tables for his beer garden. Oh, I could get in trouble there. A garden that produces beer. No, but at any rate, it's kind of neat. He's got a different picnic table than what you normally see, not the rectangular, is round with the fixed stools on it. And I told Mark that I did one very similar to that years ago. Craftsman Tools had this show that ran for, I think, a couple years called the Craftsman Experience. And I was the first guest star to be on the show when they first started. And the show was live back then. I don't know, maybe later they edited and recorded it, but then it was live. And I had to build a similar picnic table, but we put one different unique twist to it. In the center of the picnic table, it was cut out and housed a pony keg of beer. And that was a lot of fun. It was also very stressful because I had to have it done in a certain amount of time, and like I said, it was live. The camera was always coming over to me and checking in on the progress. But I tried to find the video. There are some other videos of me at that show, but I couldn't find the one of the picnic table with the pony keg in it. Anyways, nice job, Mark. See you next week. Okay, Andrew Eikum. I hope I got your name right. Andrew sent in his photos for the first time. And what I like about what Andrew's showing, he's got the computer drawing the SketchUp version of this TV console that he's making. And it's in the arts and craft form there. And he said, other than the rough milling of the wood, like through the surface planer or maybe on across on the table saw, the rest of it he's been doing with just hand tools. And so he's making the full-through tenons on it. And I think he even said he's going to do like a wedge tenon to it as well. But definitely going to be a nice-looking piece. That's going to be one of those that when people walk in, it's really going to take notice in that room that you got there, Andrew. So keep sending us photos of it. I love the look of it, and I'm excited to see what you complete next week. Don Dean. This is kind of funny. So Don said that his wife's been complaining to him that he watches way too many woodworking shows. And she actually encouraged him to stop watching and go out in the shop and make something. And so he did. He made this little bench. He said his wife loves it. She puts flowers on it and everything. And I like the look of it too. I think he too. I can't remember if he made it out of scrap wood or pallet wood. I can't remember. But regardless, I just kind of thought it was funny that he watches so many of these shows that his wife actually has to tell him, you know, get out there and do something. That reminded me when I was a kid, my mom used to, when we were out of school on summertime or even on Saturday, she had us up by 9, and she was like, I want you to go outside. I don't want to see you back until it's lunchtime, and then I don't want to see you back until dinner. Go. I mean, she insisted that we got out, so it sounds like Don's getting some of the same advice. Peter James. Now, you're probably familiar with Peter. Peter closes out the show with the song there that he plays on his mandolin, and he's teaching some students to make these mandolins. And this is another picture of the progress the students are doing. They're planing the wood banding or binding going around the mandolin there. And two things I like about it. One, I like the attention to detail that they're doing. I mean, and you think about it, just about any musical instrument is really all about the detail and very, very precise. And it looks like he's instilling that in the students. The other thing I like, too, is that little Stanley block plane that he has there. I have the exact same one. I love mine, use it all the time. So thank you, Peter, for sending in the progress of your students there. Page 2. Dwight Lundeen. Dwight's new. Thank you, Dwight, for sending in your photos. And I thought this was cute. He said he made this bookcase for his granddaughter, Claudia. And he's the whimsical cuteness of the bookcase, he said, absolutely describes his granddaughter. And I think he said he got the plans or the ideas from something else, but he altered it. So he's got the hands up. He said that allows for her to hang like different necklaces and stuff on her or whatever. But definitely a cute little piece. I love the colors to it. It was very lively, very fun. But he said he made most of it out of poplar and MDF, and he said he quickly came to hate working with MDF. And I refuse to work with MDF anymore. I just, it's not healthy for you, for one thing, but it's heavy, and it takes paint great, but it really is not a practical piece to work with. And okay, now we have Hippy Randall Barr. I love the name Hippy. That's great. Hippy sent in these photos, and he too was a little reluctant to send his photos and to show his work off to everybody. But when he was seeing others doing it, and he too got the courage to go, you know what, why not? And man, I am so glad he did. His table is really cool. I mean, the top, he said he made the top out of a pallet wood. And I love how he arranged that pattern. Instead of just going all one direction, he's got them all going different angles on it. He said the base and the rest of it was made out of just dimensional 4x4s and 2x6s. And it's in the arts and crafts style, which I think he totally got the whole bottom half, totally arts and crafts style. And he did the mortise and half flap joints on it by hand. And he said he used the Irwin chisels, which I say every time on this. They're great chisels at a great price. They hold an edge for a long time, and they get razor sharp. The only thing that I want is I want Irwin to call me so they can be a sponsor. Come on, Irwin. But anyway, no, it's great. So another person to swear by the good use of those chisels. But I'm really glad Hippy sent it in. I think it's a cool-looking project. He said he made it for his wife. She loves it. And he even said that he had to have his best friend and partner, Diesel the dog, in the shop with him. Though it doesn't look like Diesel's doing a whole lot. But anyhow, thank you, Hippy, for sending in your work. feel free anytime to send me more of your stuff. Okay, now we're going on to the guy who's here every week. Yes, talking about Kevin Delk, good friend of mine that, I got to know through the whole social media thing. I've been talking with Kevin for years now. And Kevin is kind of doing the same thing I'm doing. He's doing a little shop improvement. So he put in some insulation, some paneling up, and he added himself a clamp rack, which, by the way, twice this week I've had people ask me about this clamp rack back here. You know, could I show how to make it? There's nothing to show, folks. What this is this was a shutter. I had a job where I made, I can't remember, 20, 30 some shutters. And this was just a goof. I think I milled something in the wrong spot, and I didn't want to throw it out. So scrap piece of wood became my clamp rack. So there you go. Nothing fancy. But Kevin made his, and I'm sure he has probably some customers he's getting ready to make some furniture for. So we'll stay tuned. Another new folk, Saul Penilla. And Saul made this flower box out of redwood, and he said it was his first time carving. And I was telling Saul that I love carving. I mean, there's something really peaceful about it. I don't have any power tools going. I don't have to walk the whole shop. I can stand right here, have my tools, and carve away. Now, I don't call myself a carver. You know, I mean, there's some trades in the woodworking, like turners. They're mostly, that's what they're skilled at, and carvers. They're mostly skilled at that. I just do it for enjoyment, and if the job requires it. I don't get too many jobs that need carving, though, but I love to carve. So I'm really glad to see Saul trying something new and getting out of that comfort zone that we always talk about, and he's doing something new. And look at it. He made it for his mom. I mean, it's a win-win any way you look at it. Mom loves it. He loves it. He's learning something new, and he's now sharing it with the rest of us. So thank you, Saul. Brian Anderson. Brian is working on a farmhouse table. Now, last week, Brian literally just had the dimensional lumber that he picked up from the store just sitting on the floor in his shop. Now he's got the legs made for it. And he said that he got a tip from, I forget who, but he got a tip from another video about distressing the wood, and he said with gravel. And I wasn't familiar with that one because, you can take keys or different things to beat it, to distress it. And he said the gravel gives it a more natural look. So I said, what do you mean by that? So Brian gave me this little video clip of him doing the technique. And you can't get any more basic than that. But I wanted to thank Brian for sharing that with me so I could share it all with you. I'm definitely going to try it sometime. But by the way, check out that cool truck. I mean, oh my God! It made me think of the show, the Jerry Seinfeld, where he does comedians in cars getting coffee. We ought to do something similar, like woodworkers drinking beer in their shop. Maybe not. We'll stick to this. Anyways, thanks, Brian, for sending that in. Mr.Moe. Yes, Mr.Moe. Has a small entry this week. Big projects, small projects. We said this last week. Don Bullock sent in a small ice cream scooper. Mr.Moe is sending in a handle he made for a hammer. And so even small projects encourage us, because if we're limited on time or tools, or sometimes just even we're having trouble coming up with an idea, something as simple as a handle for the hammer is what Mr.Moe did. But for Mr.Moe, the hammer is sentimental. The hammer used to belong to his father, who's no longer with us. And he said every time he uses it, he thinks of his dad. And I had to relate a story to Mr. Moe because I totally understand that. This is a hammer that I found out was in my family for 4 generations. And it's a very old hammer, I found out. It's called a split head hammer because the handle doesn't come through the top for like an adze. It literally is sandwiched in between. It's split and riveted in place. Anyhow, I did a little blog on this hammer and the story behind it. It was something in my life at the time that I was going through. It was personal. It was very difficult. And I wrote the little article a fair amount of time after the situation passed. But I found, because I typically am a private person, but I really had a lot of healing after I wrote the article. So if you'd like to learn a little bit of history about this unique hammer and kind of like what I'm talking about as far as how it helped me, I'll have the link below in the description. Okay, so thank you, Mr. Moe, for sharing your hammer with us. Rick Frazier. Now, Rick is a fellow that I know. He's right here in Toledo. Rick is like a CNC extraordinaire. This guy is doing some really cool stuff. He's working even with some decent-sized companies on some training videos and education and so on. So he's doing CNC, but in this case, he just made a table for his son that plays D&D. I imagine that's Dungeons and Dragons. He said his son and friends come over. Now, the table's not done. It's going to have a mural painted on the top. But I was impressed to hear that because typically it seems like kids are playing video games, and now, I don't know, maybe it is a video game, but if they're coming over, I think it's probably like a card game of some sorts that they're still doing. So anyhow, that was great that Rick is doing that, and the kids aren't just sitting in front of a computer. All right, page 4 is the last one. Jeff Burton. Now, last week, Jeff sent in some photos. He's working on making a shuffleboard table. And I told you he made a mistake on it, and that actually, even though it was frustrating to him, it gave him an idea to be a little bit more creative then with the table. Well, poor Jeff, he suffered another setback this week. Apparently, he's got some water valves out there in the shop, and the water valve wasn't turned off all the way, and so it was dripping. And when he came back like a day later, there was water all over the floor, and the legs of the table soaked up the water. And they're probably going to be ruined, but I told Jeff I had a very similar thing happen to me. I was building... and I say I'm building because this is a project I've been working on for probably well over a year. But I'm making a table. I'm making a new desk for myself. And I took the time, made all these legs and have it mortised out and everything. And then in the back corner here in my shop, on the outside, there's a downspout. And the downspout got knocked off. And we had a really bad rain. And I had some water come in just this corner of the shop. And wouldn't you know it, it soaked up into this maple, and it was like grayish black. It had dried when I finally saw it, and it was grayish black. And I thought, oh no, those legs are ruined. I tried to sand them, and it was in there because it's just end grain. Now, I don't know if this is a proven fact, okay? It worked one time for me, so don't swear by this. But what I did was I took a coffee can, empty coffee can, filled it with some denatured alcohol, and then I put all 4 legs in it, and I let it sit for a couple days. And I let the alcohol soak up into the legs, and then I took the legs out and just let them dry. And I think that alcohol, I don't know how that worked, but I think the alcohol helped pull the moisture out. Anyhow, I wound up sanding them, and you can hardly tell. I think when I'm done with this, you'll never know that these were water-stained and discolored. So I don't know, Jeff, or anyone else, if you might want to try that. It might work, it may not work, but hey, it's worth giving it a shot, right? Okay, well, that's it for the end of this episode. I do want to say that if you want your pictures posted here on the show, you can email me. But, folks, I have a new email address that I got to give you. And the reason being is I'm getting so many photos in, I'm getting so many email questions in, and I'm having regular conversations with some of you all that I've actually been missing and losing some of my business, my clients, my customers, sponsor important emails. So I'm going to ask you that you now email me at woodchoppintime@gmail.com. If you're new to it the first time, no problem. There's your address. Some of you fellas that I talk to on a regular basis, if I could just have you update your email address book there, put it in at woodchoppintime@gmail.com. That way I can not lose anybody's important emails coming into me. But as always, thank you so much. This show would not be possible without you, the viewers, and I hope to keep encouraging you to build. I keep wanting to see more of your work, and we'll be here same time next week. Until then, keep on dancing.